a car got confused or something of that nature, and a car turned down into the protest. And then people are just screaming and sprinting. And next thing you know, we hear gunfire. I've seen love be so much more powerful than hate. I've seen love literally conquer all. And that to me is just what life is about.
Aloha, and welcome to the Sick Bird Podcast, where we explore the bright side to life's darkest moments. Today, we're privileged to host Marshall Hugh, a musician, activist, and an inspiring figure in the Pacific Northwest and beyond. Marshall stands out not only for his compelling music, but also for his courageous actions during the BLM protests, where he stood up to police and the National Guard, advocating for peace and unity. Through his songs and activism, Marshall spreads powerful messages of resilience and love. Join us as we dive into Marshall's profound insights and celebrate his relentless spirit on today's episode. So I think this is a perfect place. You know, I got to meet you last night, and just watching you exist out in the world. You were just this light, man, and bringing all your homies and your friends, and then we're all just vibing and just seeing how you are in the world. I think it just speaks to what a light you are and what you're doing, not only with your music, but just like your messaging too, man. It's just really, really impressive. It's an honor to have you here today.
I'm really excited to be here. San Diego feels like a sunny Seattle almost. And the people are so chill and the people are so happy. And I find myself like it's easy to be a light because I was around so many amazing people. And when I had the chance to just hang out with you, I felt like I had known you for years already.
Oh, man.
And
Thanks.
man, I love that hat you got on, Leaders Love. And that's exactly the type of energy I can feel from you and the people, the company you keep. And I was happy I could bring some of my friends around because it felt like our friends were friends and your friends were my friends.
Instantly. Like it just hit all those like, this is the squad right here. This is awesome.
Yeah, for real.
But yeah, man, you just have this incredible energy too. And what you're doing with your music and your band. I saw this incredible TED Talk you did about spreading love, but I know it wasn't all like sunshines and rainbows for you. You know, have had some adversity. You had some things that you've had to overcome. Can you tell me a little bit about a situation where you're like, man, this is as tough as it gets, and I don't know how I'm going to make it out of this?
Yeah, I think a lot of musicians in the modern era and in these past, half decade or so, you're going to hear them start with, I had one plan and then the pandemic happened.
Right.
And that changed a lot of industries were affected, but live music and gatherings, that's what we're all about. So we had planned a 50-day national tour starting at South by Southwest, literally had quit my lease. I was just going to go on the road and never come back, basically, was my thought process. And
wow.
Starting at South by Southwest, the date was March 14th. We start hearing rumblings of this thing, coronavirus. Like, well, South by Southwest hasn't canceled. Once South by Southwest cancels, then maybe we'll take it seriously.
Yeah.
And I'm hanging with my drummer. He did the same thing, quit his lease, put all his stuff in storage. We got the tour van packed up, ready to go. And next thing you know, South by Southwest cancels. And our 50-day tour and my plan for my entire life and finally getting a shot to just go and spread love through music, which is what I love doing from city to city. Some shows were going to be great. Some shows were probably going to be duds, but we were going to go and actually do it.
Yeah.
And the world shut down. And when that happened, it created a fork in the road to whether I'm going to really pursue music, pursue my passions, pursue my creativity, or am I going to have to pivot like everybody else?
Yeah.
And music wasn't deemed essential. I had no forms of income or anything coming in. And we all moved into the band house together.
Wow.
All of us just said, fine, if we can't safely be around each other, making music and then leaving and being around, whether it be our parents or our girlfriends or whatever, we're going to all move in together. And that's what we did. We started making music and trying to find a way to adjust in the pandemic. And then as soon as that is all happening, George Floyd gets murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And here comes this powder cake of angst, of pent up aggression, and something that I've been experiencing as a Black person, and my grandfather, and all of these years and years worth of traumas and mistreatments all flash and occur at once. And we leave the house, and now we're fully submerged in a protest. That time is such a blur.
Yeah, man. I'm wondering though, like, what are you? There's some anger about the George Floyd,
Yeah.
I'm sure, right? But what are you telling yourself, like, right as the pandemic's hitting, your tour's canceled? Okay, I guess we're all moving in together.
Yeah.
What is the internal dialogue going on for you? Is like, man, we're screwed, or you're like, we got, like, what are you telling yourself?
To be honest, I guess fight or flight kicks in a little bit because you're just in survival mode. And for me, I went to a school called Carnegie Mellon out in Pittsburgh after high school. I played basketball and football there. And next thing you know, I get introduced to music. And when I get introduced to music, that becomes the sole focus and the main priority in my life over everything, over going to class. I'm in class. I'm like, the teacher thinks I'm writing notes. I'm writing verses in the corner. Like I become so just enthralled and consumed by music and hip hop that became my number one priority. And I dropped out of school, came back to Seattle because that's where my support system was. I got an internship in at this radio station, Cube 93, the number one hip hop radio station. So this is after my sophomore year of college. I just say, I'm not going to school anymore. I'm going to pursue music.
Wow.
And my parents and my sisters, everybody's like, whoa, where did this come from? I'm like, I'm telling y'all, this is the thing that I'm actually passionate about. This is the thing that I will actually put in the work to be successful at.
Yeah.
These other things I'm going to school for, I might labor my way through it and like be successful at it because I'm capable of working hard when I don't want to, but I actually want to work hard on this.
Right.
This is what I'm willing to sacrifice everything for. So I had already decided in my life, is music or nothing. It's go big or go home.
Yeah.
And so,
Let's say so, man.
Yeah, I got it. And music was going fairly well prior to the pandemic. I would say we were like a rising up and coming band in Seattle that had used our music and created events to bring people together prior. So we had kind of became leaders in the event space and music space as far as leading with an open hand as far as, and not competition. It can get really clicky.
Yeah.
And so music, it was that or everything. So when the pandemic hit, I just got into a mode where like, I don't know how it's going to work. We don't know what the industry is going to look like moving forward, but I know I got to be with my main collaborators, with my band, making new songs and processing these active emotions in real time on the mic.
Yeah. Do you notice a difference between the music you were making before this happens, before pandemic, and then pandemic happens, and then George Floyd? Like, do you notice your own music changing in this moment?
Well, see, that's what you think of destiny, and you think of the music I was making prior towards the pandemic and towards the George Floyd protests spoke directly to the themes. And so when it was time for people to apply their art to the current subject, my lyrics were already potent and speaking exactly towards the situation that I was going with and through together as a group. So they're like in this song Head Nod, I'm talking about the latest protest, stress be weighing down my neck. I found my inner balance and focus on my talents, nod heads. The city's on fire from the latest protest, stress be weighing down my neck. I found my inner balance and focus on my talents, nod heads. And that's something that I had written 3-4 years prior to the pandemic.
Wow.
3-4 years prior to the protest. So when the city is literally on fire, I feel like my art prepped me for the moment. So a lot of the music that we made before the pandemic, before the protests, spoke to extreme themes of people uniting and coming together. And, I had songs like Black Panther, where I said, like, tried to curse black from birth, but I swear they couldn't take it. Found all the answers when I took my trip to Hades. Glanced at the ticker while the president's debating. Whoa, look, they got Euphrates. Ain't that like 80 this year? Hope that don't happen here or near or to anyone I hold dear. I tried to push that thought way up out my mind space, but all this hate on my plate, it make me contemplate. I'ma need some answers or I'm going Black Panther. They say my skin is like cancer because I could die at random, and these are words like I already felt this before it happened. And so when I saw George Floyd calling out for his mother and gasping for his last breaths, and I felt like so many of us experienced that together. This is exactly what I've been talking about. Yeah. I've always been that friend. I've always been that person that will stand on top of a soapbox and yell and scream like, wow, the apocalypse is near, I'm like, this is really happening.
Where do you think you get that from? Like, it's just in you that, because these are powerful messages. It's not things that people are normally comfortable with talking about. It's not something that, it just, people are willing to go there in places because sometimes it can make people feel uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Where does it come from in you that you feel like I'm the one that has to share this message?
Yeah. My family, especially on my father's side, who grew up in South Central Los Angeles, they were a part of, I would say, almost like civil rights as a profession within their lineage. Yeah. And so my father's cousin specifically, his name is Shimu, he was a part of the US movement. So there's like the Black Panthers, which everybody knows about, and then there's the US movement, and they were kind of coming up in the same era, and the US movement created a lot of the Black student unions and actually created Kwanzaa and a return to Africa movement that brought it to the United States. So kind of think Black Panthers and the US movement. Mm-hmm. And during the Watts riots, my family were active participants in that, and then active participants in the subsequent movements from the Watts riots. Wow. And so there's some connection there and some understanding there that when you experience a protest or you're part of a protest, you realize that it's not just a bunch of people doing random things. It's very much so organized and orchestrated within the chaos. Yeah. And so there is a chaotic element to it. But when you have family members that have experienced a protest before, like when I went to talk to Shimu after the protest and he saw us on TV and all these things, he looked at me and said, "So it looks like you've been getting into some good trouble, huh, Marshall?" And I could see it in his face. He knew it. He knew it.
He was like, yes,
this is exactly it. Like this is the same thing I was doing, 40 years ago. So a lot of it I came by it naturally.
Right. And it's like generationally too.
Exactly.
It was in you.
It's in me. And that gets encoded as deep as, from slavery. That's my family's American genesis point. Yeah. And I'm also biracial. So I'm half Black, half white. My mother's from Tucson, Arizona. My dad's from South Central LA. My mother has 5 sisters on her side. My father has 5 brothers on his side.
Man, talk about like a yin and yang situation.
Exactly. And so I feel like my mother really created this. They met in college and then they moved to the Pacific Northwest, which is a very, it's as far as you can get from the centralized government. It's a lot of rebellious, innovative thinkers go there. Yeah. And so when that union occurred, it created, like you said, a yin and yang of love and understanding and compassion from where my mother and her family came from. And then also this side of my father and his family having to forge a path and love of their own with a lot of a different starting point than my mother's. And so this kind of perfect storm of me wanting to lead with love, but still having the generational anger and trauma instilled in my very DNA, fabric, and lineage creates me going into a protest with intensity, but also with the goal of uniting all races at the end of it or on the other side of it. Yeah. And that's what sometimes gets, I feel like, lost And something that I remember actively like yelling in the crowd and talking to the police, like, at the end of this, when it's all over, we're still going to have to go to school with and interact with these police officers' children.
Yeah.
We're trying to find a way to, on the other side, come out stronger neighbors together.
Yeah, because we're still all going to be together when this is done. Let's talk about that, man. Let's talk about this day, because it seems like it's a peaceful protest at first. Your band is playing. How do you get set up to do this? And then take us through that day, because just having, police in your face and guns and all that stuff, it seems terrifying. And you're trying to spread this message of unity, of love, of peace. And yeah, just take me through that, because it sounds like a very intense day.
Yeah, man. And that's why I'm so honored to be on this podcast with you, because I feel what you've gone through in your life and the way that you're taking your darkest moments and those moments of intensity and showing people that there's still a bright side and a smile on the other side of it.
Yes, sir.
I think that's why you and I click so much.
Yeah.
But we also understand that life gets real and it can go to that extreme of life or death quickly.
Oh, yeah.
And so for me, when the protests popped off and people were leaving the house after not leaving the house at all, and I went out there as just a participant. And so a lot of people, you got the signs, you got people yelling, you got the chanting. And I found at the end of my day, 5-hour, 6-hour day out there, I was pretty exhausted. And it didn't seem like something that personally was sustainable for me, because it didn't have the passion attached to it, just like I talked about when I was at school.
Yeah.
Like, I could stay here, but this isn't sustainable. I have to have, my passion has to be how I present. And so I hollered at my drummer, my brother Matt, aka the Hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only other brother in the band. So there's 5 of us, and him and I, are the black dudes of the band. And I'm like, bro, we have to be the leaders that we are, but we need to do it in our way. Let's take the band out there. Let's play our revolutionary music in between the main protest. Basically, if you set it up, there's a police precinct and there's a barricade that's happening on 12th and Pine. We're 1 block over on 11th. And so we're like, basically with our music, we just brought out our own stage, brought out our own generator, set up right there on the street. Eventually someone brought us a stage. We're a recharge station. We're a place where people come, and maybe people who aren't comfortable being in the front lines and being in this confrontational standoff at the precinct are more comfortable coming over and using our stage as a place to speak, using our stage as a place for poetry, coming, hearing our music, drinking some water, and then going back and re-engaging into the protest. So it's a way of making this intense situation have more sustainability to it. And the music brought more and more people out that could learn. And like I talked about, a protest may seem like there's just crazy, chaotic, no plan. But over here, we have water, we have mutual aid, we have the bike brigade that's circling around this 4-block area, and we're all working and communicating in unison.
Yeah.
So when situations arise, they might come to me and say, Marshall, you have the microphone. Can you get the word out that, yes, there's a blockade right here, but there's also a blockade on the other side. We need bodies over here at this other blockade so that the police can't come around and flank us and just arrest protesters. So once we got out there and decided to be a part of it with our music, we assumed a leadership role and almost held down this beacon of hope and rejuvenation in real time. And so the first 3 days that we were out there as musicians, it was all peaceful. It was peaceful protest.
Okay. Yeah.
No confrontations with the police or whatnot. And, we kind of started feeling ourselves. We're like, all right, we brought the music, we brought the good vibes, we're spreading love, and we're making an impact and protesting. And then on the 4th day, the police had created basically a barricade at the precinct, a barricade on this side, but they were still allowing traffic to come through.
Right.
A car got confused or something of that nature, and a car turned down into the protest.
Oh,
and so it's like an active car barreling into a protest.
Like going fast?
Going fast, going about like zip past our stage. And we're all like, oh, watch out, watch out.
Yeah.
And then people are just screaming and sprinting. And next thing you know, we hear gunfire. And we're like, what's going on? Yeah. We don't know because it went too far down. And it's basically panic and pandemonium. Mm. And while that's all happening, we were actually kind of at a break at that point, a lull. And my father, who's, like I said, he's protesting and rebelling is within his DNA. So I had asked him to come out there and just kind of be my advisor out there.
Okay, yeah.
And he
was out there with you.
He was out there with me, masked up. You remember, this is all during a pandemic. He's old. Yeah. He's at risk, and he felt it in his soul. Hey, this is important. Mm-hmm. And like I said, right, kind of that yin and yang. My mother didn't come out there with me, but I remember her calling me and telling me like, I'm proud of you, and I got bail money for you in the band. Like, wow. Go do your thing, Yeah,
I mean, yeah. Do you ever think about how amazing it is to have that kind of support, though, too? Like, not everybody has that kind of support from your mom or dad, and they're just like with you on your mission.
Totally.
I mean, yeah.
I'm really blessed in that thing, and I think what's most special about that, like I said, when I came back from school and stopped going to school to pursue music, I got kicked out the house and had to like go get a job and live on my own totally and not have any support from them. But once they saw how serious I was with it and how I continued to improve and continue as using music as a vessel to unite other people, they actually supported it. Wow. And that culminated in like this experience to where my dad is out there with me in the middle of this active wild protest situation. Mm-hmm. My mom's got my back, being like, yo, I'll bail you out if you get arrested. Yeah. And we're hearing these gunshots and my pops just looks at me and say, hey, like, now's the time, like, get on the stage, because if everyone just sprints and leaves when something chaotic's happening during a protest, they're misunderstanding that this was always a reality at this protest.
Right.
And it's not something that you can just go to and not expect violence and wild things to occur around you. This is what we signed up for collectively. And so I got back up on that stage and we started playing music. And what ended up happening was a person, his name's Dan Gregory, ran out and punched the person driving in the car. The person who was in the car pulled out a gun and shot Dan Gregory. And then there's an active shooter situation. Swarm of people subdue the gun from the guy. And now we have a shot person while we're playing. And then the police, they're kind of like breaking containment to come into a protest. But this is obviously very contentious. So we have a line of protesters keeping the police at bay saying, send the ambulance through, but the police have to stay. Man. The police and the ambulance are saying they're not going to send an ambulance through unless the police can escort them. But the tensions are so high that if that happens, it's going to powder cake.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'm on the mic communicating to our medics to bring the injured people to the ambulance.
Right.
And so they're walking Dan Gregory through the protest. And I just remember saying, hey, black man. And Dan Gregory looked over. I said, hey, would you do it again? And he raised his fist up.
Wow.
And everyone just, yeah. And my drummer, bump, bump, bump. Black lives matter. 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 And we.
What does that feel like? Because it's got to go from like pure terror to all of a sudden like the most uplifting feeling.
It was pure bliss at that point, because we had all understood that this is a reality. We're all risking our lives. The person who risked their lives the most said that they would do it again. And it gave our lives and our objective, legitimate purpose and meaning in that moment to carry us through. And so from that day forward, that's when the protests became a lot more contentious with the police relations. That's when Trump brought in the National Guard.
Yeah.
And that's when there was, 3 straight days of standoffs with the National Guard, with police to where they're actively arresting people, they're tear gassing people, they're rubber bulleting people. And for us, we would get there about 3 o'clock and we would play music until 2 a.m., 6 straight days. And that music was just the heartbeat of the protest.
So what's fueling you? Like, is it just purely this is important, this is what it's all about? Like, how do you keep showing up knowing that your life possibly could be in danger, or, you know, other people's lives could be, or, you know, there's just so much risk. What makes you keep showing up to this?
Yeah, it's wild because now I am having gone through that, I'm in a completely different headspace, and we'll touch further on this, where I have to stay in a routine to where I'm mentally and physically ready for something like this if it were to ever happen again.
Yeah.
Because while I was going through this, I wasn't like eating well, I wasn't exercising, I wasn't sleeping well. And I was just sleeping on the band's couch because we had all moved in together. So I'm operating off like 3-4 hours of sleep. And it was very difficult. It was pure adrenaline, you know, focusing, but I keep myself now in a position to where I know I could have even more impact and be a clearer, quicker leader and more concise and direct in those moments if it were to ever happen again.
Yeah.
And it left that much of a like sustaining impact on me because we did do a lot and we were able to orchestrate a lot of positive things and peaceful things and sustainable change within the city. But it could have been even more so if I was prepared for the situation and wasn't running on pure adrenaline and not a lot of sleep and just eating whatever I can get my hands on and stuff. So it really changed me as a person. But in that exact moment, before I had the tools and the experience to be able to operate at that high, crazy level, I was basically just running off pure adrenaline, to be honest, life or death. Like, I was ready to die for it.
Wow. It's crazy how your body just knows, though, right? Like, they always say, you know, because I was diagnosed with PTSD, they say that trauma lives in your body, it gets stuck. And it truly does. Like, your brain could be telling you, hey, you're safe now, but your body doesn't know the difference. And I think that's the thing. Like, it's amazing that you kind of took something away from it in that sense. Like, I got to be prepared. I got to be physically ready. I got to be fit. I got to be rested. I got to be eating well. But also, how did you work through moving that trauma out of you? Because it gets stuck, right? You have this high intensity situation for days and days and days. Like, I don't want to move too far away from this situation either, but I'm also kind of like, how did you work it out of your body, or is it still there?
Yeah. So the wild thing was, there's a thing that we dubbed it the Battle for the Hill, because all this is happening on Capitol Hill, which has a long history of rebellion in itself. And the reason we're even up there is because it started downtown. The police kind of kettled us all the way up to the hill. And it's just, it's a historically just active area. And so the last night, they're just hell bent now on arresting people. So if you're going to be there to protest after a certain amount of time, I think like 11 o'clock hit, they're saying, hey, you're breaking curfew that we put in place. If you're here, you will get arrested. So some people left. But then by that point, this is like 6 or 8 days. There are people that are so riled up from this thing that the only way they are going to leave is either in handcuffs or a body bag. Wow. That is the energy of which civilians are showing up. And I mean, some of the people that, it's funny now because the people I interact with that were with us while out there, we have this lifetime bond.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, you know, some of them are nurses, some of them are the most random people. And like, I see them and I'm like, I remember you were dressed in like full like civilian armor, ready to rage against the police, against the machine and the National Guard. So basically they're working their way down 11th towards our stage while the protesters are creating a line, and we're just continuing to play while everybody's forming this line. And so what they would do, the protesters, and this is where the organization becomes into it, they'd light something on fire. The fire truck would have to come in. They'd put the fire out. Then the National Guard could resume progressing their way towards the stage.
Yeah.
Then one person would go out there sacrifice themselves, get arrested. While that person's getting arrested, the next fire's being lit. So the fire department has to come back in. And so they're basically inching their way at a caterpillar's pace, trying to see who can outlast through the entirety of the night. Because when it gets to morning shift, everything kind of gets calm and then you just meet again. So where I'm basically saying, I'm not leaving the stage. I'm letting everybody know, like, we're taking our stand right now. Here it goes.
Yeah.
Like, and then people are like, I'm with you. I'm with you. It's like, it starts trickling down. And like, you know, through all of this, I'm looking at my band members, like I mentioned, you know, 4 of them are white dudes that maybe don't fully understand the cause, but understand that I'm this passionate about it and they have my back so much and believe in what we're doing as a band, trying to unite people so much that they're standing right there with me, risking all this with me, even though they don't share in the same generational trauma, but they see it. So they're just inching their way. And like around 2:30 hits, and next thing you know, they're bringing in this thing called the Bearcat. It's like a tank that like does audio. It'll screech so loud.
Tank?
It's like it's a tank called the Bearcat.
Okay.
From the National Guard. They brought and these are against American citizens that they're using this against.
Right. And at this point, I mean, things are pretty peaceful still, or is it contentious? Are there like fights breaking out?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's wild about it is it'll be calm, but then somebody gets pepper sprayed, and then, you know, you're going to get people throwing things on this end of it. It's not going to be like, the aggressors are definitely the state. The state are the aggressors, but once an aggressive act is happening, there's aggression on either side.
Right.
And so it got to the point to where they're bringing in these tanks that have like basically loud pitched speakers on it that go so loud that they can pierce your eardrums and break your eardrums. And so the Bearcat's barreling down. We're not stopping. People are lighting off fireworks. There's fires everywhere, sirens everywhere. And around 2:30, all of a sudden you see the National Guard, the police. The National Guard have shields, riot shields, everything. You see them turning around. You see the Bearcat turning around, and they left the precinct and just completely vacated the hill. And no longer was there even a police presence on the hill anymore. Yeah. And we danced and we celebrated and we just partied in the streets triumphantly.
Yeah.
And that was the moment that everyone could exhale, and it became this zone where arts and everything blossomed for a few days, and things were beautiful. And that's how a very long way of saying that's when the processing and the release of the trauma began. And to see people connect and to see art being on the forefront of making those tanks and the National Guard turn around and them leave the precinct and finally stop the contentiousness, that was when the processing began. And ultimately we went straight 4 or 5 days after that. We went straight from the protest to Whidbey Island and made 12th and Pine the album. And that is, we poured all of our experiences into the album and encapsulated that moment in history in art. And that was how I began and really got a good start on the journey of processing that trauma and understanding what was going on through art.
Yeah. Do you have this moment of like, we did it, but also I have some relief, but now where do we go from here? Like, what is that feeling like where, you know, you stood up to the man, you stood up to people who have weapons and all these things, they now dissipate and you're collectively with this group. What does it feel like?
A lot of complicated emotions. And that's why, again, if I were in the situation that, again, I am mentally prepared to be a true leader and lead with love in that situation. I think once the police left and it was kind of like, okay, now this is just our spot to create what we want with it and make the statement that we want with it. I think during that time I defaulted and took a step back and deferred to other community leaders that I felt had more experience than me and that understood where to take that energy and push it.
Yeah.
When in reality, no one had had that experience. And if
Right.
there was somebody that could have led with love, it was me. But I
Mhm.
took a step back, and I always kind of kick myself for that, to be honest. I have a lot of regret around that because I feel like I wasn't the leader that I could have been in that moment because I defaulted to others and wanted to do it by committee. Whereas in those moments, you at least need one person or somebody to say, yes, it's a group thing, but I will put myself out there and I will lead.
Yeah, but it's so funny you say that, and I appreciate you sharing that, man. That's very vulnerable, and I appreciate the hell out of it. But it's like when I hear a story, I hear a leader. I hear somebody who stood up in the face of adversity. It's something that's hard, and you still showed up, and you were trying to organize people and keep things peaceful and keep things positive. It's like you were doing that. It's so funny how we always we're going to all have these moments in life where shit's going to hit the fan. And how do we react? How do we show up? And you never know, right? Like I always hear people sometimes when crazy things happen, they're like, well, I would have done this. I would have ran in here and like kicked down this door. It's like, you really never know what you're going to do when you're in the thick of it. And it's funny when I'm hearing you, like, you were that person though. You were stepping up and you were probably nervous and you were probably scared, but you were just there being a leader in so many ways. So it's funny, like hearing you say that. I think for sure you will be more prepared for the future, but what you did, I think also needs to be celebrated and also needs to be recognized how wonderful you were in what you did and what you were able to give to the community in this peaceful, positive, and loving way.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I just be hungry for wanting to create more and more impact. And I think that's part of the trauma associated with an experience like that is you're always thinking, oh, I should have went left. I should have went right. And
Mhm.
I am proud of the statement that we made and the impact that we made and the platforms we've been able to parlay this experience into to continue to help people and continue to lead with love. But I also know that there's so much work in that specific area to still be done. So I want to have that feeling of if I get another crack at this, I know I can execute at a higher level. And that's just the type of person I am. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, it's amazing.
I love this. I love it. I live it, and
Yeah.
it gets me up in the morning. It's like a cup of Joe. You feel me? It's like a cup of Joe, dude. It really just pushes.
Yeah.
I'm just that type of dude,
Yeah.
and I try not to be too hard on myself. And I think I got great people around me that do acknowledge that and love me for, who I am, how I am. But I'm also just that type of person. I'm always looking at what's next.
Yeah, man, I love it. Yeah, and hopefully it's not like you have to hopefully be at the front lines of a protest again.
Yeah,
but
let's hope not. But if it came to it, yeah, I'm in better shape now. I'll run further and faster.
There you go. But you take this crazy experience now and you're making this wonderful music. You do this TED Talk. I watched it and you have this incredible message about spreading love and having our music be this representation of love that people can latch onto and it unifies people. And I think it's amazing, man. Like I just really relate to it a lot too, because yes, a terrible thing for a lot of people happened to me, but I wanted to make meaning out of it. And it seems like you're making meaning out of it and you're putting it in the form of music and you're sharing with people. Is this always going to be the goal? And how do you continue to push this? Especially because it's not an easy road, right? When you're telling people, I want to spread love, I want to spread unity, I want to spread like higher thoughts in society's like, that's stupid, that's whack, it's never going to work. How do you then push against it and keep going?
Yeah, I think for me, it has to come from an authentic place so that you never run out of fuel source. And I think that I've seen love be so much more powerful than hate. I've seen love literally conquer all. And so I believe so deeply in that feeling that people get when you look at them, acknowledge them, and see the good in them. And that smile that comes or that glimmer of hope or confidence that puts over somebody's body. And that to me is just what life is about. And so it's easy to keep going because there's never a moment that leading with love or spreading love doesn't necessitate. Like every
Yeah.
situation, if you go in there with it, you can change somebody's day, and that day could change somebody's life. That moment can literally change somebody's life. You never know what they're going through. So love is this constant energy source that's fueled by the vessel of music and creation and events and togetherness. And so I feel it's easy to keep going because it's what I feel like I'm chosen to do, and what I've like put on this earth to do is to spread love,
Wow.
you know?
When did that message like really get stuck in your mind? Where like this is what I'm called to do.
Yeah, I always been so growing up, I was an athlete, played like point guard and played football, and I always been like a captain of my team or like a leader of my team, somebody that brought a team together, you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, see, you've always been leading, man. Like it's
Yeah.
always been there.
It's always been like that, you know? So I think sports allowed me to have a framework and easy application of my leadership. And then once I got out of the disciplined regiment that sports provides, I was kind of at a loss myself, but I had music. And so music became that discipline that encompassed my whole life. And I've always been a leader. And now I just had to refine the format of which I lead. And it's
Yeah.
gone from music, but it's also progressed towards event curation and bringing all different walks of life and all different genres of music and comedy and all these artistic expressions into one area as much as possible. And that's really what I'm trying to bring to the Pacific Northwest region, is not only our individual music, but our own fashion, our own comedy, and us really being proud of who we are in our region so that the rest of the world can see it and feel it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, because it's wonderful. Like I have family ties back to Pacific Northwest too.
Yeah.
Obviously, a big
Seahawks fan, man.
exactly,
212. Let's go.
yeah, exactly, definitely a 12 for sure. But it's like feel like this message also needs to be shared around the world, and I think it's brave of you to put that out there. I think a lot of times I'm always conflicted. Like I grew up as an athlete too, playing football and played hockey, I played baseball, I played basketball, I played everything, right? But I was always like tough. I was like, I gotta be tough. I gotta be like, suck it up. I'm not gonna cry.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna do any of that, right? I'm gonna like, the more pain, the better. It makes me tougher.
Mhm.
But also now that I've gone through this, I've also realized that it doesn't make me weak to show emotion. It
Yeah.
doesn't make me weak to spread love, to show love, to tell people I care about them. How do you find this bravery even in yourself? And like, where were you like, yeah, I can do this. Like, I can be this person that can talk about this. Was it always there? Or is it right when you got into music, you're like, you know what? The purpose is love, and I need to be the one to share it.
Yeah, I think very similarly to you, you come from that sports background, especially during the era of which we played sports, where it's like, hey, suck it up, son, more pain is weakness leaving the body and all that.
Yeah.
Now, it's funny, I'm a
Yep.
coach now, and I try to do the opposite of that.
Mhm.
But when we made that album and whatnot, I cried multiple times making the album. The people around me cried multiple times with the album, and showing that vulnerability of I'm not okay, but I will be. I think having that mindset and being willing to be vulnerable in it is actually where the most growth can happen. And I got some amazing people around me that aren't afraid to show emotion or to like give me a hug.
Yeah.
And I'm very blessed in that fashion. And so because I'm so blessed in that fashion, I try to create environments that give other people that same outlet and that same support system. So like this event that we throw called Fremont Fridays,
Mhm.
which was like the next iteration after 12th and Pine and all this stuff happened. Like, how can we continue to be leaders, but be leaders on our terms? One of the things I notice at our event versus a lot of other people events are the amount of hugs people get.
Yeah.
People see each other and they don't just shake hands or say hi. It's like maybe an initial doubt, but then you see the toughest people I know are at Fremont Fridays giving people hugs.
That's amazing.
And the amount of hugs that happens at our events and happens at Fremont Friday, it creates a place for the creative community and those that are interested in supporting and being a part of Seattle's creative community, a place to go and physically touch and hug those people. So hugs are huge, and being vulnerable enough to just show your emotions, like it pours out of you.
That's incredible, man. I mean, I'm already getting like happy just thinking about it. You know, it's like, man, you can't not be stoked, especially when you're connecting with people like that. It's such a different thing. And I think with COVID too, so many people got separated and moved away from each other, or, you know, you stopped communicating in person and you stopped having that physical connection, you know, and it was a tough thing. I think I see a lot of people still dealing with that. So it's amazing for you to support that and allow this to be a space for people to do that. But my question with it too is like, it's obviously bringing in people who are about that life or about art, but what is your take on people who are not about it? The people who are opposed to it, like, hey, listen, hey, that artsy stuff's not for me. That emotional connection stuff isn't for me. How do you speak to them? And what would you say about coming to join Fremont Friday or your music or your messages?
Word. Yeah, I think the main thing I would push to people is that's okay. It doesn't have to be with me or what I got going on, but where are you finding your love and your support for yourself and your higher being? Whether that be church, whether that be the gym. You know, I'm personally really into the gym as an athlete. I got this thing called the Calm app. I do daily meditations. I try to read. You know, what does your routine look like on the daily that allows you to find peace and find some sort of sanctuary in your life? Because when you don't have that grounding, you can see it in a person.
Right.
You can see when they don't have that inner peace. And it can come from a lot of different ways. It can come from a lot of different sources. It doesn't have to come from my specific music, but where does your inner peace come from? And I think that a person's day-to-day routine and how long they're able to stay in that routine and in that flow state, that says a lot about how much inner peace they actually have.
Yeah.
Can they sit with themselves? Can they look at their current life and can they accept it for what it is and still radiate positivity to others?
Right.
And then, you know, you can see it. The people that are out there spreading hate, the people that are out there commenting negative stuff, you can see that they don't have a grounding in their life, in all honesty. And it's just one of the ways that they're reaching out and crying out for help and a sanctuary.
Yeah.
And I feel optimistic that those people will find that, because I want that for everybody.
Man, that's amazing.
You feel me, bro?
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah. But just so much empathy, right? Like you know, when I first started doing this, I was like, man, I don't know if I want to put myself out there that much. And someone's going to comment, hey, you know, why does this guy got like the Winter Soldier hand, or like what happened to this guy's face or whatever, right? Like you never know, the internet can be a crazy place. And I was so worried about those comments. In some other podcasts I've done, like we've gotten some of those negative comments and I've taken it personal.
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, whoa, you know, I'm trying to talk about something I love, I care about, I enjoy. Why are you coming at me with so much anger or hate? And I just love what you said. Like, you're just looking at it from empathy. It's their heart basically reaching out and saying, I need some help and I don't know where to go with it. This is the only outlet I have. What would you tell them? Like, if you got to meet this person, they write, you know, a hateful comment on your post, what would you tell them if you got to see them face to face?
I mean, the main thing, and this is what's so disarming, I'd greet them with a smile and a handshake and a hug, and see how they respond from there. Because honestly, probably 9 times out of 10, that right there is what they need.
Yeah.
And they're not getting that type of support and love in their own life currently and in their routine. And that's why they're lashing out like that, is because they don't have that love around them. Right. And honestly, that's how it start. And then from there, it's like, also, if you are trying to bring this type of reaction into the world, you have to expect to be met with an equal or opposite reaction, right? These are laws for a reason. And so if you're pushing this much positivity out in the world, you have to expect at least equal, or greater reaction to bounce back your way. And so if you don't have those things, then that probably means that you're not really giving an effective dose of what you're trying to convey out into the world.
Right.
Because it's got to be some bounce back and forth.
Right. It's almost like you're saying it's a sign that you're on the right path.
Totally.
And that you're doing the right thing. You're putting in the right amount of energy. And
totally.
Time. Yeah.
And those type of things also, it's like, for me, what I've learned throughout the time is like, even though it may not be the form of which I want to receive the feedback, it's still critical feedback, and you can grow from that. And, you don't have to like look at a comment online and have it shut you down. You could look at it also with a smile, like physically putting a smile on your face while you're receiving maybe negative news. It alters the way the negative news frequency hits your body.
Yeah.
If you have a smile on your face, now you're operating from a place of high frequency, and then the negative stuff doesn't affect you the same. You might be able to cut through it and see the message behind the messenger. And that's okay, you got to grow, you got to evolve, and it's not everything's for everybody.
Yeah. Man, I love it. I love it because I completely agree with you. So much in my life, anytime I got bad news, like I'm maybe terrible to give bad news to because I'm always kind of laughing, and I just want to, like I just have a ton of fun joking around, laughing with people. But you're right. Like there's definitely been times in my life that's probably gotten me in more trouble where people are telling me bad news or reprimanding me, and I'm kind of like giggling a little bit. But it's, I'm still taking it to heart, but also maybe it softens the blow a little bit.
People don't realize, like, and I think you definitely realize more so than most, like at the end of the day, this could all be gone in a second.
Yeah.
So really, what's the big deal? Nothing is that serious. Nothing can't be worked through.
Yeah.
Unless the only thing that can't is death, right?
Yep. There's nothing coming back from that. Man, that's crazy. I just feel like you have this amazing perspective on life, and I don't know where you get it from, if it was just because of your family and how you grew up, if it was because you read something, like just even talking about the meditation, like where did it come from, that inspiration to try putting these things into practice and being like accepting of it? Because like I'm all about it, but I feel like I get a lot of pushback from people like, that's cool, works for you, but it's not for me.
Yeah. I mean, the people that say that, I feel like they haven't really given it like a true effort. I know for me, I'm like, once I've done something 10, 12, 20 times, then all of a sudden, okay, I can create the practice in my own way that's sustainable for me. And now it does work for me, but it didn't before. I'm definitely very blessed with a support system that I'm also the baby of the family. So like my sisters, they all kind of like all went to great schools and did all that. And so it was time for somebody to rebel and kind of shake things up.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, there goes Marshall, so I'm definitely blessed by having other people around me and having a great support system. I also have had some great friends in my life that are like family and people of different religious backgrounds. So I went to like a Catholic high school, and so I understood kind of the Christianity way of doing religion. But one of my good friends, he's Sikh, and he introduced me to meditating in high school. Wow. And was like, hey, you got to try this. Like at our Gurdwara, we do this all the time, and you should try to actually connect on like deep meditation. And because this was someone that was already my friend, I didn't look at him and think, oh, I don't, that's crazy, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, cool. And I tried it. And so I've been meditating probably since I was 18, 19.
Wow.
And that's just been something that I know I feel better as a person, and I'm able to handle day-to-day adversity better if I have taken just the concept is applicable to everybody. It doesn't have to be meditation. It could be prayer. It could just be sitting with your thoughts. If I take 10 minutes to myself to prepare in my mind for adversity that's going to inevitably hit through that day, I am going to react to that adversity better because I've prepped myself for a difficult situation to inevitably occur.
Yeah.
You know?
Man, that's incredible.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
So I take the time, the first thing I'm doing when I wake up is making sure I'm getting a smoothie or, fueling my body properly, because that's what's going to allow me to operate at tip-top shape. Then I'm looking to meditate and I like to meditate in the sauna. See, I'm just like an extreme dude. That's just how I get down. I like doing extreme stuff.
That's like killing two birds with one stone. Sounds perfect.
In the sauna, I'm meditating. Nothing is going to be harder or gonna mess with me after I've meditated in the sauna.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be all right today.
That's
I know
amazing. So one of the questions I always ask everybody before we wrap this up is what brings you the most peace? But I think you're kind of answering it. It's like taking this time for yourself. You're fueling your temple correctly. You're probably getting enough water. You're going to the gym. All of these things you think, or is that what gives you the most peace currently?
I would say so. I would say doing a consistent routine that is making me incrementally take step towards my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal being at the end of whenever my life is, that I made a positive contribution to society and spread more love than hate. And so I keep that at the forefront and try to have a routine that reflects that objective. And I find myself happiest when I'm creating. I find myself happiest when I'm having conversations like this with like-minded people that are willing to go all the way to the edge and then take that glimpse and share the other side that they gleamed from their experiences with the general public. And when I'm creating and having a powerful conversations or reinvesting into my own self mentally and physically to work towards that goal, that's when I'm at peace and able to live in my purpose.
Damn. That's wonderful, man.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
That goal
that's how
is
it goes.
Incredible, man. I just think that's just a powerful message and a powerful goal.
And some days it's not like every single day I'm like a juggernaut,
Right.
Some days I go for a walk, I hang out, watch Netflix. I think there's a balance there too. But I do think that being in a routine and being purpose driven towards leaving the world a better place, those type of people that have that objective, they can unite. And once we're all buzzing within the same realm and pushing towards that, that's when our collective consciousness is going to make the positive change in the world that we all hope to see. And Lord knows we need it now more than ever.
Yeah, definitely, man. Couldn't agree with you more. So if there was somebody out there, they're at their lowest moment, they're, standing in front of the National Guard, they've just hit rock bottom in some way, what's one piece of advice you would give them?
The best advice I can give someone in that specific moment is to take the deepest breath you have ever taken in your life and center yourself. Mm-hmm. And once you feel that little bit of relief when you exhale, that's the moment of clarity that you are now chasing until you get out of the extreme moment that you're in.
Yeah.
Put on your own life vest first, fill up your own cup, get yourself situated to where you have a daily routine that allows you to keep your head above water. Mm-hmm. From there, now focus on the other things. But oftentimes when you're in those moments, you're neglecting so many other things around you that your basic needs and essentials aren't being met. And that's why you feel so overwhelmed. Take the time that's needed, even if you have to stop everything else, whether it be with addiction, just personal struggles. Stop what you're doing and make sure you yourself are okay.
Yeah.
That's the biggest advice I give anybody at rock bottom. Secure yourself first and reach out if you need help, because there are resources out there. And it could even be just DMing an IG page like you or I that have really been through something and try to connect.
Yeah, I love it, man. Yeah, I think we take it for granted how powerful the breath is, right? And we also just forget because it's like we do it naturally without thinking, right? Unconsciously. But I completely agree with you. Taking that conscious breath can completely reset your mindset. I just completely agree with you, man. I think it is such a useful tool, checking with yourself, checking with your body, and then it's like, all right, now how do we proceed?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you've been asking me a bunch of questions, but I got a couple questions for you if you don't mind, bro,
Yeah,
because
absolutely, man.
it's not every day that I get to talk to somebody who has not only been through what you've been through, but is so willing to share. When you had gotten that plane crash and you were in that moment, once the plane crashed,
Hmm.
what was going through your head? Were you thinking like, I'm gonna die?
So the little bits, it's all kind of getting spotty now, but the little bits I remember was like pure terror. I
Mhm.
just seeing like there was just nothing but rocks, and I was like, man, I didn't know if I was gonna die, but I definitely knew this is gonna hurt.
Yeah.
You
So you're
know,
like
and
headed down like, ah, dang.
yeah, but something amazing kind of happened in that moment right before impact. I remembered hearing stories of like car crash survivors and how, you're not supposed to tense up because if
Yeah.
you tense, it's going to be way worse. And there was this moment right before we hit where I was like, I just released,
Yeah.
completely released all my muscles. I was like, you're just gonna release. And I don't know for a fact, but I think it kind of saved my back in a lot of ways. I
Mhm.
did end up fracturing my spine in some spots in my lower spine, but there was this moment of like, hey, this is happening. The plane was going down. No matter what we did, it wasn't staying up in the air. So I just had this release
You
right
took that
before we hit.
breath.
Yeah, maybe I did. And yeah. And then yeah, remember my head going towards it, hit the thing. And then when I woke up, it was just pure chaos.
Oh,
And then, yeah, it was fight or flight. So I completely knew, I have that feeling that you had of like, man, and truthfully, we were talking about it earlier. There's conscious things you would want to do differently, right? When you're in a stressful situation. But
mhm.
I was not in control of my body at all.
Yeah.
It was just moving. It was get the seatbelt off, open the door, get out. Like I wasn't moving at all. It just was on complete autopilot.
Wow.
When I finally had a chance to like kind of gain control of the machine that was my body, I'm looking back at the plane and I see it on fire and I don't see anybody else getting out. And I start running towards it. And this is where I heard a voice, people would say it was like an angel, but it was just like this voice that
Uh-huh.
was saying, hey, stop, drop, and roll, you're on fire. Stop, drop, and roll, and you're on fire. And I was more afraid to roll in the rocks. I might have said this before on other shows,
Uh-huh.
but I was more afraid to roll in the rocks than I was about the fire because I couldn't feel any
Wow.
of it.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I stopped, dropped, and rolled, I was completely like paralyzed from the neck down.
Oh,
And one of the guys who saw us from the highway basically dragged me away from the plane, and I couldn't move from the neck down. And that's where the reality of everything started to sink in.
did the stop, drop, and roll help?
Yeah, I think so. I think it put
Yeah.
out most of the fire, but as soon as I did that, and I'm on my back, and like I said, he pulls me away. All of a sudden, the pain started to hit
Mm.
me, and then the realization of like this wasn't a dream or a nightmare. So much of it was so confusing, and I think to your story too, it's like you get in these moments where you're doing what you feel like you're supposed to do. You're doing, you're living your dream, living your purpose, and then something flips, right?
Mhm.
And you think you're making conscious decisions, but there's also parts of you that are just moving. It's just instinctual. It's the lizard brain that just makes us go, right?
Mhm.
I think the thing that I'm pulling away from your story, because I feel for you in so many ways, but you were like, man, I wish I could have done this and this better.
Yeah.
And I used to have so much of that thought too, of like, man, I wish I did this. I wish I just said no. I wish a million things.
Yeah.
And through therapy, my therapist told me, he's like, you know, I think you need to stop shoulding all over yourself.
Yeah.
And he was right. Like we could, would all the time, but we didn't. We did what we did. And how do we live with those decisions?
Mhm.
And I think that's the thing I grip with the most now. And I always just want to show up in the best possible way I can, in a place where I'm never wondering like I should have done this. I wish I did that. It's more I showed up in this way. I did the best I could. I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I operate from now on. Sorry to make your
No, it's
question.
amazing. I mean, that's why I asked the question, because the clarity of an experience like that and surviving experience like that, that's what I feel like all of us yearn to understand, is like when you see that moment, what type of crystallized impact does it have? And to know like I'm showing up as my best self in every opportunity I can and not regretting or shoulda, woulda, coulding it.
Mm-hmm.
I did what I could when I did, how I did it, and I led with love. That's ultimately what life is about.
Yeah.
And you notice that in your life or death situation. And I've noticed that in the difficulties that I've had, but it's very, very powerful coming from the beacon that you are. And you're here, bro. You survived for a reason. And now you're changing other people's lives, mine included, by sharing that crystallized sentiment. I really appreciate it, bro.
Thank
It's
you.
amazing.
Oh man, thank you. I'm amazed by you, and I'm amazed by how you've figured out this thing in life that so many people search for. You know, it's like, how do we build something outside of ourselves that's a true message and a true thing to live your life for? And I don't think there's a better message than uniting people, spreading love, and just, wanting to make a positive difference in the world. So yeah, I want to like wrap it up right there and just give you a hug right now.
Oh, come on, man.
But before we do that, I want you to share with everybody out there what you got going on, where they can find you, where they can support you, and where they can check out your music and all the above.
Right on. Yeah, everybody. The name is Marshall Hugh. I'm in a band called the Martial Law Band. You can find me in Seattle. You can find me at Fremont Fridays during the summer in Seattle, and we're building something super, super special. So online, everything is at Martial Law Band at Fremont Fridays. Please follow us, connect to the music, connect to the overall vision, and spread love with you and your people today, tomorrow, and all year. And if you do that, life's going to be all right.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, bro. Bring it in.
Hell yeah, dude.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Sick Bird Podcast. It was a privilege to have Marshall Hugh with us, sharing his journey as a musician and activist who stood up for justice and peace during the BLM protest. His story is a compelling testament to the power of music and activism to inspire change and foster community. Marshall's dedication to spreading love and unity shines through as a beacon of hope, illustrating how passion and courage can truly make a difference in our world. If you enjoyed our conversation, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, which we greatly appreciate, and share this episode with someone who could use a little inspiration. Follow us on all of our social media channels at SickBurnPod to stay up to date on upcoming episodes, weekly inspiration, and behind-the-scenes content. Join us next time as we continue to explore more incredible stories of overcoming adversity and finding the bright side of life's darkest moments. Aloha.